Hello and welcome. I hope you're well and you've had a great week so far wherever you are in the world. So let's get started because today we're going to be talking about how to create a creative marketing campaign that actually works. One of the questions that I get asked a lot is how do we actually come up with a creative marketing campaign that works? And what people usually mean when they ask that particular question is, how do we do something that gets attention, feels different, but still drives results without wasting time or budget? The assumption sitting underneath that question is that the problem is around creativity, that if we just had better ideas, everything would work perfectly. But in reality, most campaigns don't fail because they lack creativity. They fail because they lack structure and direction. And if you get that wrong, it doesn't matter how clever the idea is, it still won't land. So the way to think about this is not how do we be more creative, it's how do we build something that actually makes sense commercially and then express it in a way that people pay attention to. The first place to start is not the idea, it's actually around your audience. Different audiences have completely different tolerances for creativity. So if you're selling into a highly regulated environment or into large corporates where risk is a factor, for example, your marketing needs to feel more controlled, credible, and structured. But if you're selling into tech or founder-led businesses, you've got far more room to be direct, to challenge things, and to take a much stronger position. So before you even think about a campaign, be really clear on who you're speaking to, what matters to them, and what they will and won't tolerate. Because if you get that wrong, even a really great idea can feel off to the recipient. Once that's clear, the next mistake most people make is jumping straight into ideas. So what should we do? What campaign should we run? And the problem with that is you end up with activity, but not with much direction. A better starting point is to look at what's actually frustrating your audience right now. And you can check that on AI. Where are they stuck? Where are they wasting time or money on? What are they doing that isn't working? Because that's where your campaign comes from, not from the imagination, but actually from reality. So instead of saying we're going to run a campaign about lead generation, you might actually say something like more leads is actually the problem. That's a very different starting point because it challenges something people already believe. And that's what gets attention. If you want a more structured way to generate ideas, there are a few simple approaches that work brilliantly well. So one is to take what people already believe and flip it on its head. If the belief is that more leads equals growth, you challenge that and you say more leads might actually be what's slowing you down. Another is to highlight a hidden cost, not just budget, but time distraction and lost opportunities. And the third is to take a diagnostic approach. So instead of promoting what you do, you frame it as, if this is happening in your business, here's what's actually going wrong. So this becomes much easier when you stop trying to invent ideas and start listening to what your customers are actually already telling you. And this is where most campaigns fall apart because they're built in isolation instead of being grounded in real conversations. So instead of guessing, look at what comes up again and again in your sales calls, objections you're receiving, and lost deals that you're getting. If you keep hearing, we've tried marketing and it didn't work, that's not just feedback, that's your entire campaign. Because you can turn that directly into why trying marketing doesn't work and what needs to change. At that point, you're not creating something from scratch, you're reflecting something your audience already recognizes. Once you've got a really strong idea, the next step is to separate that idea from the actual execution. And this is where a lot of teams get it wrong because they jump straight into design and formats before the thinking's properly been clarified. So a simple test is this. If you can't explain the campaign in one sentence, it's not ready, because no amount of execution will fix a weak idea. So from there, you need to think about where this campaign actually lives. And this is where channel selection becomes so important. Not because every campaign needs to be everywhere, and trying to be everywhere is one of the fastest ways to dilute your whole impact. So instead, ask yourself, where does my audience already spend time when they're thinking about this problem? That could be on ChatGPT, it could be on Google, it could be on forums. For most SME businesses, LinkedIn is a strong starting point because that's where business conversations are already happening. If your audience needs more depth and explanation, YouTube can be really powerful because it allows you to build authority over time. And if your audience is closer to making a decision, email can be one of the most effective channels because it's direct and controlled. Budget plays a huge role here as well. So if you're working with a smaller budget, your focus should be on strong ideas and consistent organic content. That means showing up, sharing clear thinking, and engaging with the right people. If you've got more budget, you can use paid activity to amplify what's already working. So test it organically first and then use those that work well and pay for it. But the key point is this: paid should scale something that's proven, not compensate for something that isn't. Because you commit to a full campaign, you should always test the idea initially. Put it out as a LinkedIn post, turn it into a short video, use it as an email subject line. Then watch what happens. Do people engage? Do they respond? Does it start conversations? And if it lands, build around that. If it doesn't, adjust it. When it comes to the creative itself, this is where people tend to overcomplicate things. They try to say too much, they add too many messages and CTAs, and then the whole clarity disappears. In most cases, the strongest creative is the simplest one. It's got one clear, bold idea. That's all. Because people are not spending time trying to figure out your marketing and read through a 150-word paragraph. They're scanning, filtering, and deciding very quickly whether something is relevant. And finally, make sure the campaign leads somewhere. Attention on its own isn't the goal, movement is. So whether that's a conversation, a call, or a clear next step, it needs to be obvious what happens after someone engages. What is that one step you want them to take next? So when you step back and look at it properly, creating a strong marketing campaign isn't about being more creative. It's about understanding your audience and identifying something real that needs to be said, a pain that needs to be talked about, building a clear idea around it and choosing the right channels and testing it before you scale it. Because when the thinking is right, the creative becomes obvious. And when the thinking is wrong, no amount of creativity will fix that initial weak idea. So if you thought that this content was useful, make sure that you like and share it with someone else who's working through their marketing, and subscribe for more practical insights like this. Thanks for watching.